I would like to thank developer Outlands and publisher Sometimes You for this free review copy of North. North is an odd game to comment on. It's really similar to Myst, or more recently Abduction, in the sense that it's about exploring a surreal environment in search of a vague objective. The big difference is that North gives the player a lot more direction than those other games, to the point where it handholds a little too much. This helps keep the game going at a decent pace, but it also removes that sense of discovery that the genre is so well known for. But even so, the story is the true driving force of the game here, and not so much the gameplay. The player is a refugee driven from the south by persecution and seeking asylum in the north. As a stranger in a strange land, the player needs to figure out what to do in order to earn his country's government's trust. This ranges from doing your job without dying to proving you're not a terrorist. The main character occasionally writes down his thoughts and mails them as letters to a sister who still remains in the south. And this acts as both the driving force of the story as well as the game's main means of direction for the player. The gameplay is a slow-paced first-person adventure where you explore the city for clues to accomplish your next objective. The explorable area is pretty small, and it's a really linear game, so there's not much in the way of difficulty. The letters to the sister also directly point out what needs to be done to proceed, so as long as you're paying a little bit of attention, it should be very easy to figure out. Occasionally, there'll be a dramatic shift in the gameplay, like in the factory where you're able to run extremely fast, or during the trippy dream sequence, but these moments come and go quickly and don't really do much to mark the experience as a whole. For the most part, you walk around and you look at stuff. The draw here is meant to be more of a storytelling experience rather than a traditional game. On the game's page on Steam, the developer describes it as a commentary on the contemporary refugee crisis, and I can definitely see where they're coming from. The world of North feels both familiar and alien at the same time, and it's frustrating to prove yourself to strangers when you can't even understand your own roommates. It reminds me a little of that scene from Persepolis.
Willst du etwas essen?
Say what?
Was?
Huh?
Some segments are a little too absurd, even for me, like how the immigration office is flooded for some reason, or the church is, well, this. But I do appreciate the abstract German expressionist approach that North presents, which is appropriate since the developers are based in Berlin. And despite the poor graphics, mediocre music, and ugly overuse of chromatic aberration, seriously, this is ridiculous. But despite all that, it does manage to push its atmosphere well. It's a neat little game to play through, but it's far from great. The gameplay is simply not that engaging. Movement options aren't interesting, there's no menu or inventory to manage, and the few times where failure is possible just instantly resets the player to an immediate previous checkpoint, which distills the danger that's supposed to be expressed. Not to mention the fact that the game moves along at a pretty brisk pace, so even though the main character will write about the struggles that he's going through, it won't seem like much because the whole thing is over in about an hour. Almost makes it seem like the guy is just whining. The theme of a refugee trying to settle into a foreign land could have been really interesting, but not enough is done with it here. Compared to games with similar themes, like Papers, Please and This War of Mine, these games instill empathy for foreign lands and the innocents within who have become trapped in dangerous situations that they don't fully understand. And those games do this without sacrificing the gameplay or looking like a student project. I actually have a fair bit to say about This War of Mine because I don't feel like that game is very good, but it does carry its theme more effectively than North does. That's for another review though. All that said, North is not a bad game. The story is compelling for the most part, and the environments and visuals are neat to see for yourself. It's only $2 on Steam, and it's free on the developer's website with a small plea for donations. I'm not sure how much it will be when it launches on the PlayStation 4, but $2 is an okay price for an experimental game that can be finished in an hour. You can totally skip out on North if you want because it is a bit shallow and fails to offer anything substantial, but it's worth checking out if you want something a little different. Just keep your expectations in check. Thank you for watching my review of North. I would once again like to thank developer Outlands and publisher Sometimes You for the free review copy. North is scheduled to release on the PlayStation 4 March 6. If you would like to be updated on my future videos, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter.